Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico, and welcome to another edition of the 330 to go Sports Talk Hoops Wire Cavs NBA show. And I think the title gets a little longer every week, but that's okay. We'll just keep it going. Thanks for joining me again today. Going to talk about the Cavaliers. Been a little bit up and down, which is just fine. But today I'm going to be joined by longtime NBA Cavs writer. Really, Northeast Ohio's covered it for a few outlets now, and that's Bob Finnan. He's with the Medina Gazette, Elyria Telegram right now. Elyria Chronicle Telegram. And he's been with us covering the team for, I believe, the mid-90s. Anyway, we're going to bring in Bob, and we'll ask him about all that and talk about Cavaliers. And hopefully at some point be talking about a team that's been a little bit more consistent. So just trying to go there. Bob, how you doing? First things first, well. Give us a little bit of your resume, your background. Obviously, you've covered the Cavs for quite a few years. I'm not exactly positive right now. How long it's been?
Too long. No, I started, my first year was 1994, and covered them all through the Fratello years, LeBron years. I retired after the championship, and they asked me to come back and cover them for the Medina and Elyria papers, and now I'm back. This is my second season, and I sit next to you at the game. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, we sit next to each other. Obviously, we sit next to. Yeah, we sit next to each other in the press area, and I kind of leave my popcorn sitting all over by your, and then kindly brush it aside toward you. But yeah, I think I've been covering him basically full time since 2008, and you had been there at that point 14 years. And you've written a couple books, right? Tell us about your books.
There's only one book. I actually wrote a children's book that never got published, but the book was 100 Things You Should Know About the Cavaliers Before You Die. It was basically 100 stories on the team from its inception. Like actually there's some info in there from before 1970 leading up to it, and then all the way through the championship. A lot of LeBron stories, and a lot of different things that happened through the years, and it was actually a lot of fun to work on. And as you probably know, it's a lot of work. It really was. And my wife told me she saw the back of my head at the computer for about 2 years while I was putting it together. But it turned out pretty well. I sold more than 2,000 copies. So very happy about it.
Yeah, that's great. What, so yeah, was your wife happy, by the way, to see the back of your head as opposed to the front, or?
Yeah,
did she not say?
Yeah. Well, I have a little bald spot back there too. It's been bugging me, but no, it worked out.
You too.
And yeah, I made her edit the stuff that I wrote, so she really came in handy.
Yeah. Well, so you said before there were some things in the book. I didn't intend to spend the entire time on the book, but I'm just curious. You said some things leading up to before the franchise came around in 1970. Give us some of those stories. I want to hear them.
There were a ton of them, but it was just Nick Milletti trying to get the team off the floor, really, and he bought the Cleveland Arena. I don't know if you were ever at the Cleveland Arena. I was there a couple times, and
Nope.
yeah, it was a real dump. It was down, I think, on Lakeside Avenue, if I remember right, near like where Channel 3 is now. But I remember, boy, this is really off topic. I didn't plan on talking about this, but there was a bar across the street called the Cockroach Inn. And we came up when we were in high school. I went to New Philadelphia High School, and we came up to the game, and we went into the Cockroach Inn, and we were all underage, so I don't think we were drinking. But there were some ladies of ill repute sitting there, and we went up and talked to them. It was a fantastic night for us, and yes, there was basketball later. I think they played the Celtics, and it was pretty neat going to the game, going there a few times. But and then once the team did get off the ground, there was just some crazy stuff that went on. The real funny one, I'm sure you've heard this story. One of the Fitch was getting ready to start the game, and he looked around, and one of the guys was missing, and he said, "Where the heck is so-and-so?" I can't think of the player's name. And he sent one of the assistant coaches to go find him, and it wasn't hard to find him in the Cleveland Arena. It wasn't a very big place. And the guy was in line buying a hot dog, and I think they cut him about a week later, but he was chomping down on a hot dog, and it was I think the opening tip had already gone on. That was some of the stuff that really went on early on because the team was so bad. You know, they lost like 15 in a row, and their only saving grace were two other expansion teams came into the league the same year. I think Buffalo and maybe Portland came into the league that year. So they got to play those teams, was the only way they got to 15 wins.
Well, did were they able to basically, you know, how did they stay afloat then? Is what I'm curious. Like, because they probably weren't making much money.
Oh my God, I think they're losing a lot of money, and Maletti was able to. He was like a magician with money. He never had really a lot of money himself, but he found ways to use other people's money. And they, after a few years at the arena, Cleveland Arena, then they moved to the Coliseum, and things
Right.
really improved from there.
Well, then you kind of went into that era where they got Austin Carr and went to from there to the Miracle Richfield season.
Right.
And yeah, there's just a lot of cool history. I do remember my dad telling me that before the Cavs, the Cincinnati Royals had a game there and would play a few games there. Do you remember that at all?
I do.
He said that he went to watch them play, and Bob Cousy. Yeah, Bob Cousy was the coach of the Cincinnati Royals. And one time he went to inbound the ball. He put himself in. He was player coach and put himself in to inbound the ball, and was unable to get the ball in bounds before the 5-second count. And so he called timeout, took himself out, and never checked back in. But that was my dad's lone memory of Bob Cousy as the player coach at Cleveland Arena.
Well, of course, Oscar played for them. I think about 1960, 61 on, or I can't, the dates are a little fuzzy.
Right.
But I did see the Cincinnati Royals play.
Yeah.
I won free tickets from the Cleveland Press for getting for being on the honor roll or something like that, and they used to give us tickets, so we went down and watched the game, and that was the first time I'd ever been exposed to pro basketball. I was such a big baseball fan at that point. Pro basketball and even football wasn't on my radar at all. But this, as far as the Miracle Richfield, you touched on that a little bit ago with Austin. I was at Kent State during the Miracle Richfield year, and we wanted to go to a game in the worst way. And of course, we had no money. So me and one of my best friends, Lance Addison, went to Akron, sold our plasma at Plasma Alliance, got enough money to buy a Cavs playoff ticket and eat at McDonald's, and went to the game. Went to one of the games. I think it was the Jimmy Clemens game where he had a putback at the buzzer, and they won one of the games against the Washington Bullets. And I was so glad that we got to go to see one of those games. That place was just crazy.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing, I think that was really kind of my first introduction to the Cavs. Just, seeing it in the paper, it was like on page A1 then, which back then you would never see the Cavs on the front of the paper ever under any circumstance. But all of a sudden I just remember, I think I was 7 years old at the time. I just remember the hype and it was really the first time in my life that I remember kind of, I don't want to say a whole town, but a lot of the community was seemingly rallying behind those Cavs. So it was a really cool thing to see, and it's good that you were able to afford a ticket to both the game and McDonald's. I don't think you could do that today.
No, the ticket was like $7 or something. I mean, it was very affordable back then, but they were so awful for so many years. Once they did get good, people were just responded to it, and they were a foot injury by Jim Jones away from really at least getting to the NBA Finals. But he went down. They turned to Nate Thurmond at center, and Thurmond was good for spot minutes at that point in his career, and he just couldn't stand up to the mighty Celtics then once they got to the next round, and they couldn't get past them.
Yeah. Well, and then here's what I'm always curious about, because I probably didn't start following them real closely for another 4 or 5 years. So they went to they got to the second round, I guess that was, right? Or was it the East Conference Finals, because you only had to win one round?
Yeah, that would have been the East Finals. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then what happened to them then? Because all of a sudden, all I know is there was a Miracle Richfield season, and then there was the Ted Stepien era, which were two totally different things. And I'm not real clear on what happened between those years of, the Miracle Richfield and Ted Stepien. I mean, how long? It was only a few years. I just didn't know what transpired, because it seemed like they went from Miracle Richfield to garbage within 3 years.
Well, things are a little fuzzy for me even back then. I know they had some injuries. Austin missed, I think, one season. After that, he had some kind of knee problems, and it just didn't work. They did I think they made the playoffs again, but I think they had a losing record, and things just weren't the same. And then finally, Fitch ended up leaving, and that really hurt things, because he was the heart and soul of the team. And and then they went into the Stepien era, and things really got wacky.
Yeah, I mean, it was wacky then, and I think I just remember, you know, it was so wacky that it was like a live comedy show. There was like in that era, it was like the Carol Burnett show, Bob Newhart show, Mary Tyler Moore, and Ted Stepien in Cleveland, because so many of his things that he did, dropping the softball from Terminal Tower, was it? He dropped the softball from Terminal Tower as part of a promotion.
Yeah. Well, that was a competitors, I think, promotion.
Okay.
His pro softball team, and then he hired the softball coach as the Cavs general manager, and he had no experience whatsoever. And strangely enough, he was one of the most sane people that they had. And I got to know him later in life when he ran a bar in Mentor, and he used to love talking about things. But yeah, it got really
Don
nuts.
Delaney.
Don Delaney's his name. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real nice man. He's not with us any longer, but
right.
He was like the sane person in the room. They had Musselman then, and he was kind of a whack job.
Yeah, Bill Musselman. Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, not his son. His son's very sane.
Yeah.
Where is his son now? He's coaching where?
Arkansas, coaching the Razorbacks.
Oh,
they did not get into the NCAA tournament this year, he was at Nevada before that, Eric Musselman.
Yeah.
And then I think he left for Arkansas, and he's been in the NCAA tournament every year except for this one. And Eric, of course, went to Brecksville and played his high school basketball team. Was it Scott Roth? Scott Roth, the 7-footer or 6'10" guy?
No, he's 6'9". 6'9". Yeah, I saw him play in high school. He was a fantastic high school player. And
5'7".
I remember. Oh, yeah, but he was so quick and just a great shooter. And I remember being at the game, and this guy, super fan. I don't know if you remember this guy or not. His name was Eddie Nara. He just stood up and screamed. He screamed at him, "Musclehead!" And he kept calling him Musclehead through the whole game. And I felt so bad for Musselman. I didn't know him at all then. And this guy was just so crazy. And he was just seeking attention. But yeah, he had a heck of a high school career. Where did he play in college?
Remember that guy.
Where did Musselman play in college?
University of San Diego, I believe, with Chris Grant, who's the former Cavs GM. I believe they were teammates, and I think Mike Brown was there too at that time.
Wow.
And they went to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And I think they may have won a game. I remember watching Musselman at the University of San Diego. We're talking about Eric Musselman, who was the son of the former late Cavs coach, Bill Musselman. Eric and played at Brecksville High. Eric actually, if you watched him he was playing the University of San Diego, and they had an NCAA tournament game. I just remember thinking, this guy, he looked like Spud Webb out there. He was that small, but he totally controlled the game. And I obviously, you could tell he had a dad who was a coach, a dad who was very, in his own words, very tough on him, tough love. It really paid off. And also on that Brecksville team was Tom Tupa, who went on to become the punter and quarterback for the Browns. And he was like a backup quarterback for the Browns. Played at Ohio State.
Well, yeah, he was a punter, and he was a superior punter. And I don't know if he ever really played quarterback for the Browns.
I think he played a little bit. Didn't he play quarterback at Ohio State a little bit, or no?
Not much.
I know he took a few snaps. I remember seeing him take a few snaps at quarterback for the, I think at the time they were the St. Louis Cardinals.
All right.
But it wasn't. Yeah, punting was his specialty, and he was very good at that.
Oh yeah, he was outstanding.
Yeah.
So we went from there. Yeah, once Stepien finally got out of there, things kind of returned to normal. The Gunn brothers bought the team.
Yeah.
They brought in World Be Free. They were, George Karl was a coach, and the World Be Free thing. When I think they signed him as a free agent, the big splashy story is they brought him in on a helicopter to the press conference, and that was a Harvey Green. He was a PR guy then, and it was a pretty neat stunt, and it got a lot of attention. And the World was fun to be around, man. He could score, and they kind of went from there till they got to the one draft where they got Mark Price, Doherty, and all those guys. They had drafted the Hot Rod the year before, and it really all came together then for them.
Yeah.
And how that team never won a title is really just wrong because they were good enough.
Yeah. Well, Michael Jordan got in the way of that. He got in the way of a lot of really good teams. Obviously like the Utah Jazz, that Seattle team that George Karl coached was fantastic. But you think about the Price Doherty era, my gosh, they were so much better than just about everybody else but Chicago. And the one year they lost to them on the shot, as you know, they beat them all 6 games in the regular season that year.
Yeah,
so it's hard to tell why they never could get over that hump. But I mean, a lot of people suspect that maybe the Ron Harper trade kind of did them in '92. So yeah. But anyway, moving on from those guys to today's team, as much as I enjoy the past and enjoy talking about the Cavs of my youth and younger years, all impressions of the team now. Because, I mean, obviously, 117-18 in January. I don't know about you, Bob, but now sometimes I almost feel like I'm covering a different team, even though it's not really the Cavs' fault. There are times that I feel like, here we are in March, I feel like this is a totally different team than the team I was covering in January, because they've just had so many key injuries. And not only key injuries, but it's just been one after another where 2 guys come back, another guy goes down, and they go down for a long time. And as you know, as somebody who covers the team, as I do, some of these things are just an absolute mystery. I mean, Max Strus, we have no idea what's going on there. Dean Wade, I don't know what's going on there either. So, I mean, that aside, what do you make of them and their chances right now?
Well, you better get used to it, because I think this is going to be one of those years where it's just the injuries are going to be predominant through the whole year. And when they have all their players together, they're a very good team. And but getting them together is the hard part. And they really miss, obviously, their different team with Donovan. Without him, there's so much attention put on Garland that at times he breaks down. I mean, in no fault of his own. When Donovan's on the court with him, you can't trap him every time and get the ball out of his hands. And it's unfortunate, but it looks like to me that Evan Mobley will be back kind of soon. We don't get any kind of real information on that, but he appears to be the one of those 4 guys out that will be back the soonest. I would think Dean Wade could play
Yeah.
too soon, but Struce is, he just has pedestrian numbers, but my God, he's so important to
Yeah.
a winning team. He does. I was talking about it with one of the other guys. There was one game he had 4 points in the game, and I thought he absolutely dominated the game with his passing. He was just fantastic, making pass that play after play, and he hustles, he defends, he can rebound, he does so
Yeah.
many things. He's only
Yeah.
a 12-point scorer, but he is really important to the team, and now they're forced to play George Niang, major minutes. And
Yeah.
some of these guys now are playing like 40 minutes a night because it doesn't seem like Bickerstaff trusts some of these younger guys. So he's really playing the veterans heavy minutes right now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's NBA coaches have a long history of kind of struggling to play rookies. I would be surprised if we see Craig Porter Jr. at all in the playoffs, even if because he's going to
No.
tighten the rotation. We're not seeing him much now without Donovan Mitchell out there.
Yeah, no,
So
he'll play Donovan and Karras at the backup point guard
yeah,
once Donovan comes back. We won't see him at all, and we won't see much of Sam Merrill maybe either. And I don't like that because I love watching that kid shoot.
yeah, and I mean he adds that element to it that they definitely need. They obviously need that because they love to shoot threes, and they just are so much differently all of a sudden right now. They're really like uptight on him. Everybody's very aware of him, but that's where I think that you got to start looking to run a little bit more than just pick and roll, and find ways
What you
to
mean?
get him
Run plays?
open
Run some
and get
plays?
him
You mean?
available. So, yeah, I think
I don't know.
yeah. Well, I think that there's yeah. Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know if this team, earlier in the season, I thought they could really do some damage in the playoffs. Now I'm back to thinking they might not get out of the first round. The way things shape up now, they could run into a team like Philly in the first round. I wouldn't feel real great about that. Even Indiana would really test them. I know they beat them the other night, but Indiana's a very talented group. So it's going to be a real tough first round matchup, even someone like Miami.
Well, I mean, no, I wouldn't want to see Miami for sure. No.
Oh my gosh, no.
I think that their best bet is to face the Orlando Magic. I mean, and I'm not saying if Mitchell comes back, it's a little bit different. But when you look at where they match up, where the Cavs match up with, the possibility of Miami is there, as you mentioned, the possibility of the Knicks is still kind of there. I think them and the Cavs and the Knicks will finish too close to. I don't think they're going to finish 4 and 5 like they did last year. So, and I think that the matchup possibility too with Philly is there with Joel Embiid coming back. Because Philly's down at the bottom under. They're on the lower end of the seeds. They could end up playing Philly in the first round. And out of all those teams I just listed, the only ones that I think the Cavs would be okay with seeing, their preferences would be Orlando and Indiana. And as you mentioned, Indiana's no cakewalk. But the key is they have to have a healthy Mitchell. That just changes everything.
Well, yeah, and they need all their guys back. I mean, Evan and all of them, and they got to figure out how to play Evan and Jarrett Allen together too. I mean, that's becoming a something to keep an eye on. So, that's the key, getting the guys back, and then you take on whoever you're going to run into in the playoffs. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and right, and I think that one of the comments here is we need to the Cavs need to face guard Mitchell the rest of the year. So after that broken nose, Tristan Thompson slapping him in the face in Houston. So I think that's, who knows? Who knows if he would wear a mask when he comes back? I don't know. Obviously, Bob, we don't know how severe that nasal thing is. He had to undergo a procedure for it, which, I mean, broken nose, that's a pretty big deal if that's what the case is, because it takes a while to come back from that. And when you do come back, sometimes you got to wear one of those face guards. So we don't know if that's the severity of it, because as Bob knows, they're fairly what's
guarded.
the word
They're very
I'm
guarded
looking
with
for?
information. Guarded.
Secretive about many of these about guarded. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where all that started. Whether that was Bill Belichick or I don't know. I don't know where that came
Oh
from.
no. It was Fratello. Fratello was
Fratello.
so paranoid about everything. Yeah. But yeah, and you got to worry about Donovan's knee as well. He's
Yeah.
he's not the same player as he was in those 2 games he came back. He only averaged 13.5 points in the 2 games. He wasn't blown by anybody on the court, and he wasn't getting to the basket at will like he usually does. And I think that worried him a little bit too.
Yeah. Right. I think, you're exactly right. There was some time there where he kind of was those 2 games you could just see where he was kind of settling. He wasn't. He just didn't look the same. I mean, the first game I thought he was 5 of 16 against from the field against the Pelicans, and I kind of thought, are you really, that rusty? Didn't you get any practice or anything? But you know what? Then the next game you saw it again, where I think he was 4 of 13 against the Rockets, and it was clear. And he just came out and said it after the game, but it was clear if you watch the game that he wasn't able to blow by anybody like he normally does. And yeah, I've seen several reports that he's not in a great spot, and yeah, it's just it's you're not going anywhere without him. No, I don't care
No.
whether they play Indiana or Orlando in the first. I just don't think they can win 4 out of 7 without him right now. They're too reliant on him. They became too reliant on him, which is not what I thought they would be when they first traded for him. I thought they would be, be like Mitchell's 1A, Garland's 1B, and they've really just become way too focused on him. And we saw that in the playoffs last year, because when the Knicks took Donovan Mitchell out of the series was over.
Yeah. Well, Garland wasn't very good in this series either, except for the 1 game. Really,
Yeah,
the
one good game,
1/4
yeah,
of one game. And on the other hand, Karis LeVert has really come through. He's really playing well, and if you can bring him off the bench, that really gives you a solid option as a reserve. But now, of course, they're forced to play him major minutes. He's got to play almost 40 minutes a night now. So, another thing to think about is JB's. Will JB make it if they only?
That's part of the problem is you're playing these guys. No. If they lose in the first round, he won't be the coach next year, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that yet, but there'll be a lot of pressure on them to make a move there. And
yeah.
I mean, I really like him. I think he's a pretty neat guy, pretty good coach. The players really love him. But yeah, I mean, how many years can you put up with getting beat in the first round? And it won't. It isn't necessarily all his fault this year because of the injuries, but you know, he might get blamed for it.
Well, right, and I think that's usually what happens in these situations. Is it's really not his fault, but on one hand, I think that you look at like the Denver Nuggets who stuck with Michael Malone for what 8 years, and really kind of rode out some situations there that were kind of tricky, and so there's benefits into not always firing the coach. I don't know if today's general managers and owners realize that a lot of times GMs will fire the coach because the GM says it's you or him, um, or the owner will tell the GM it's you or the coach. I wouldn't say a lot of times, but enough times. Um, but if you look at the benefits of kind of sticking it out, sticking it together, obviously Eric Spoelstra in Miami, and I don't know that anybody thought Eric Spoelstra was a great coach when he had LeBron and those guys, because he had LeBron and those guys, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, and then of course, obviously Greg Popovich has been around forever. But to me, it's like Michael Malone looks kind of like the one area where you just stick with your guy even when things aren't going great. So who knows? Maybe JB would be the coach after a first round loss, but I think it's all situational. If they're healthy, then everybody's ready to go. Maybe not. If they lose in the first round, maybe not JB's back. But yeah, I don't think you can blame the guy for all the injuries, because guess what? When they were playing great and fairly healthy, he was in the coach of the year running for some people. So it all comes down to the postseason, I'm sure. But
Well, now they have to make sure they at least hold off the Knicks, because the Knicks are right on their heels. I think they're only 2 games behind Cleveland, and they are just on a tear. And you don't want to drop to 4, and then it just wouldn't behove them to do that. But I still think if they had their players, they could have caught Milwaukee. But now it's hard to say now.
The benefit of sticking at 2 or 3 is the fact that if you do get out of the first round, you're putting off presumption. In theory, you're putting off playing Boston, the number 1 seed, if you finish 2 or 3. But I mean, there's no easy road for the Cavs. That's just the way it is. If they can get healthy and play like they played in January, then I think the sky's the limit. But if you're not healthy and you're the number 2 seed, it's not going to matter. They've got to be, and by not healthy, I mean by not having Mitchell as close to 100% as possible. And like you said, Mobley, and Strus. I mean, all those guys are valuable. Dean Wade has his value. He's a good wing defender. So, yeah, that's my thoughts. I think everybody would agree on that. The Cavs need to get healthy before we can really have any expectations of them, or at least get Donovan Mitchell healthy.
Right. I'll tell you what. I think Isaac Okoro has been maybe their most improved player this year. He's really coming on, and unfortunately, he's going to be a free agent in the summer. I know he's restricted, but someone could sign him to some real money, and then the Cavs are going to have to try to match that. But you can't let him walk.
Right, that's a very understated part of the postseason, is that Isaac Okoro could potentially, like I said, he'll be a restricted free agent, but if somebody signs him to that deal. And I'll tell you what, I've always been kind of meh on Okoro until
Oh,
this
I
year.
know. Yeah,
You know,
right. There was no reason for you to be all excited about him, but he's worked on his game so much that he can now make your outside shot. He gets the basket, and of course, he defends. Now, the other night he fouled Rozier on that 3-point shot
yeah,
and turned into a
yeah,
4-point play.
yeah.
God, that was horrible.
That's what's
They,
known as a killer.
oh, they had the Cavs had a
Weren't
4-point
they up
lead.
4 when he did that?
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
up 100
yeah,
to 96 with 134 to play, and it looked really good for them. And Rozier comes right down with that 4-point play. He later had a three. He had 9 points in the last 124 or something like that,
yeah,
and he really got him. And of course, that Butler's baseline jumper was a big play as well,
yeah,
because I think Okoro had stripped the ball from him. I think it was Okoro, might have been Karis LeVert, and he recovered and scored on that play. And Miami was missing every bit as many players as the Cavs in that game, and maybe more. And boy, they had like an all-star team on the injured report that night, but it doesn't matter with Miami. Whoever he puts out on the court comes through. Even
yeah.
that guy neither of us had heard of. What was his name? Orlando Robinson?
Orlando Robinson. Yeah.
Who the heck is he?
I don't know. He
And
spent a lot of time in the G League. That's all I know.
man,
But he looks
he
all
gave him
NBA.
really good minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. They really needed that win, I thought, but because now you're going to Minnesota, and Minnesota is really going to lay it on them because Cleveland beat them here,
Yeah.
and
Overtime. And then you go to Miami.
yeah. So I don't know. It's this month is a tough one, and it was going to be tough if you had all your players. I think they play
Right.
17 games this month, and
Yeah.
it's not having all your players. It's going to be tough. They're like 2-4 in their last 6 games, and it's going to get worse.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's the start of April. They kick off the start of April. They have to go on the West Coast, right? Aren't they
Yeah.
going? They have to go play the Lakers and Nugget. Don't they have to play Denver and Denver still, the defending champs?
Yeah. Well, they play maybe a back-to-back with the Lakers and the Clippers.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, it's not going to be easy.
No. Yeah. And then you're kind of balancing. You don't want to rush Mitchell back, but you also don't want to finish, fourth in the Eastern Conference or worse. I don't think they'll drop that far. I think they'll be able to fend off some of this because they do have some home games against the Hornets coming up, which you should be able to take care of business there. Charlotte wants to lose, but it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough these last few stretches. Bob, I normally only go like 50 minutes by myself. Now, I actually sometimes will go close to an hour on this show by myself, and I'm sure that people are wildly entertained just hearing me alone by myself for an hour. So, thank you, by the way, for joining me. And I guess so. They're at Minnesota. They're at Miami, and then Monday at home against the Hornets, right?
Right.
So I guess I'll see you Monday, and then I think they have a home game Friday against the Sixers, which is no easy task. Even the Sixers beat them at home before without Joel Embiid. So,
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, they got
you.
2 games with Charlotte, then one at home and one in Charlotte, and then they come home to play Philly. Come back to play Philly, and we'll probably see Embiid there. I would assume.
He's getting close from everything I've heard.
He's right there. They're a dangerous team without him.
Oh yeah,
and they totally play differently without him, of course. But that Maxey kid is something.
Yeah, Maxey's really something, and I think that Nick Nurse obviously has had some coaching success and has been able to kind of weather that storm a little bit without Embiid, and they didn't have Maxey for a while. Quite a run for Philly in terms of stabilizing without Embiid. And unfortunately, one of those seemed like they got stable by beating the Cavs in Cleveland without Embiid. So anyway, Bob, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to go because I haven't even eaten dinner yet. I don't know about you. And you got a new fridge, so you're going to want to, utilize it here, right?
It's beautiful. It's very beautiful, by the way. And
it's not leaking.
No, the old one was leaking a little bit, so we got rid of that. Got a new one. It cost me an arm and a leg, but we're very happy with it.
Hopefully, you can still, type okay with just one arm.
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Yeah,
and it was nice. Thanks for having me on, and maybe we can do it again later. And I will see you on Monday.
All right, that sounds good. Thanks for joining me, Bob. I will see you then. And for now, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Have some, with Bob, we always have walks down memory lane on press row when we're talking about the old school Cavs, and surely have him on again at some point. So we will talk to you again next Thursday. If not before then, you can check me out, obviously, at hoopswire.com, as well as the Amico Hoops Facebook page. So, and always, as much as you'd like, right here on 330 to go. So thanks, everybody, so much for tuning in, and we will check with you next time.